Ilara didn't know that the man watching her from the forest's edge was the most feared beast in the realm. She didn't know he had slaughtered 3 noble houses that morning for insulting his lineage, or that the crimson moon overhead had been prophesying her arrival since the day she was born. All she knew was that her cousin's laughter cut deeper than any claw. The Ashford hunting lodge blazed with torchlight, and Ilara felt every flame like a brand against her skin. Furs draped the walls. Antler chandeliers cast jagged shadows across polished oak. Nobles in leather and velvet boasted of kills while servants poured spiced wine into silver goblets. Blood, triumph, and entitlement thick in the air. And everywhere there were eyes. None of them kind. "You shouldn't be here," Cashin hissed, his smile sharp enough to draw blood. He kept his voice low, intimate, the way predators circle wounded prey. "The royal hunt is for wolves who can actually shift, not broken little mistakes." Ilara kept her chin up. She'd learned years ago that flinching only made them bite harder. Uncle demanded my presence. Uncle demanded entertainment. Cashin adjusted his hunting blade, the silver catching firelight like frozen lightning. Something for the nobles to pity. The Ashford disappointment dressed in borrowed leathers, pretending she belongs among hunters. The outfit was from a stable hand named Myra, who'd smuggled it to her quarters that dawn. Simple gray wolf's hide with minimal stitching, but it was clean and fit well enough. Ilara had thought herself almost fierce when she'd strapped it on. Now, surrounded by nobles in enchanted armor and blessed weapons, she felt like a lamb wandering into a den of wolves who couldn't remember why they'd once feared shepherds. "I won't cause trouble," she said quietly. "I'll stay near the lodge. No one will even notice me." Cashin laughed. The sound carried. Nearby heads turned. Ilara felt their curiosity like teeth scraping bone. "Notice you?" He raised his voice just enough for the cluster of young lords to hear. He was performing now, playing to an audience that fed on humiliation like carrion. "Sweet cousin, nobody wants you here. Not the pack, not the court, not even the servants who share your quarters. You're 24 and completely unshifted. Do you know what that means?" Ilara knew. Every wolf in the 5 kingdoms knew. To reach her age without a transformation meant one of 2 things. Either the moon goddess had deemed her unworthy of the gift, or she was so fundamentally broken that magic itself recoiled from her bones. She'd stopped praying to the goddess years ago. Broken she could survive. Broken was familiar. "It means I'm free," Ilara said, and the words came out steadier than her heartbeat. "No pack bond to chain me. No shift to lose control of. Some might call that a gift." Something ugly flickered across Cashin's perfect face. Surprised that the prey had shown teeth. Then he recovered, waving a dismissive hand heavy with ancestral rings. "Keep telling yourself that, little cousin, but we both know the truth." He leaned close, his breath reeking of wine and cruelty. "You're nothing. You have nothing. And when Uncle finally tires of housing his embarrassment, you'll have nowhere to go. No pack will take you in. No alpha will claim you. You'll vanish into the wilds, and the realm will keep turning as if you never drew breath." He strode away, leaving Ilara beside an ancient oak pillar that had stood since before kingdoms had names. The hunting horns blared. Nobles mounted their enhanced steeds in a chaos of laughter and bloodlust. Ilara pressed herself against the rough bark and tried to remember how to breathe. She wasn't nothing. She'd survived 20 years in this house. Survived her aunt's cold indifference and her uncle's quiet cruelty that never left bruises but always drew blood. She'd survived Cashin's torments, the whispers of servants who pitied her almost as much as they feared association, the distant relatives who looked through her like glass at family gatherings. She'd survived, but surviving wasn't living. And lately, Ilara had begun to wonder if there was any difference worth clinging to. Before we continue, take 2 seconds to like this video. It tells me you want more stories like this. The first time she felt it, she thought something had died inside her. A strange heat erupted in her chest without warning, spreading outward like poison through frozen veins. Her skin burned. Every hair stood rigid. Her heart, which had been beating its familiar rhythm of resignation, suddenly convulsed and began hammering with violence. Alara pressed a hand to her sternum, gasping. She'd eaten nothing today, nerve-stealing appetite, but this wasn't hunger. This felt like anticipation, like standing at a cliff's edge in a storm and feeling lightning seek her out, like the moment before a beast strikes when time crystallizes to silver and certainty, like something was coming for her. She looked up. Across the clearing, through the crush of nobles and the haze of torch smoke, a man was watching her. No, not watching, hunting her. There was a difference, she realized with primal terror, and it stole every thought from her mind. He was massive. Impossibly tall, shoulders broad enough to eclipse the moon. Dressed entirely in black leather studded with what looked like bone, he stood apart from the jewel-toned nobility like a void given form. His hair was winter white despite his young face, falling past his shoulders in a mane that seemed to move independently. Sharp, brutal features that looked carved from obsidian by a deity who understood only violence. But it was his eyes that pinned her like prey to earth. Even from this distance, she could see they were gold. Not yellow or amber, gold, like molten metal, blazing with an intensity that made her instincts scream, run, and submit in equal, warring measure. She couldn't move at all. The heat in her chest pulled tight, like a chain being drawn taut between them. Like something inside her was reaching for something inside him, straining toward connection with desperation that terrified her more than his predator's gaze. Alara had heard stories of the bond. The mystical thread between fated mates that transcended pack, station, and choice itself. She dismissed them as fairy tales told to comfort unmated wolves. Now, frozen while a stranger's eyes burned through her soul, she wondered if she'd been terribly, fatally wrong. The man moved. The crowd scattered for him. Not parted, scattered. Like small animals fleeing a forest fire. No one dared block his path. Alara watched nobles bow so deeply their foreheads nearly touched earth. Watched ladies curtsy with trembling hands. A ripple of absolute terror preceded him like wind before a storm. Whoever he was, he commanded fear that bordered on worship. He never looked at any of them. His attention remained locked on her. On the girl in borrowed leathers pressed against a tree, forgotten by everyone except the predator now crossing the clearing with lethal purpose. 20 feet. 10. 5. Close enough now that she could see scars crossing his throat like someone had once tried to behead him and failed. The way his chest rose and fell with controlled breaths that suggested he was fighting for composure as desperately as she was. Close enough to feel impossible heat radiating from him, cutting through the autumn chill like a blade through flesh. He stopped before her. The hunting horns continued their distant call. But Alara could no longer hear anything over the thunder of her own pulse screaming danger, danger, danger. "You," he said. His voice was gravel and smoke, pitched to resonate in her bones. "What is your name?" Alara's mouth had gone dry. She should submit, should bare her throat, lower her eyes, show proper deference. Every instinct bred into her since birth screamed this man was dangerous, powerful, someone to fear and obey without question. Instead, she lifted her chin. Does it matter? Something flickered in those molten eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or hunger, or something more complicated, something that looked almost like recognition. "It matters to me." "Then you're the first person at this hunt who thinks so." The words escaped before she could stop them. Bitter, honest. The kind of honesty that had earned her more than one slap, more than 1 week locked in the cellar with nothing but stale bread and shame. The stranger didn't flinch. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin burn and her knees threaten collapse. "You're the Ashford girl," he said, not a question. "The one they keep hidden." "I'm not hidden, I'm ignored, there's a difference." "There is." He took a step closer. Alara's back hit the tree, trapped between ancient bark and overwhelming heat. "You've stood by this tree for 30 minutes. Not a single person spoke to you. Not a single person acknowledged your existence. Your own cousin publicly humiliated you while nobles laughed." His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath scarred skin. "And yet you didn't cry, didn't flee. You stood here like a queen surveying her territory as if their cruelty was beneath your notice." Alara swallowed. Her throat felt raw. "You were watching me." "I couldn't stop." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning she didn't dare interpret. Around them, Alara became aware of whispers, of eyes turning in their direction, of attention she'd wished for her entire life now crushing her beneath its weight. The stranger seemed to notice too. His expression shifted, hardening into something protective and possessive in equal measure. "Come with me. I don't even know your name." "Kieran." He offered his hand, palm up. She could see scars there, claw marks, burn marks, the earned marks of a warrior who'd survived battles that should have killed him. "And I'm asking, not commanding." Alara looked at his outstretched hand, at the barely controlled power in those scarred fingers, at the silver sigil ring on his smallest finger bearing a crest she almost recognized, a wolf devouring a crown. At the vulnerability beneath his fierce exterior, the way his hand trembled almost imperceptibly, as if this mattered to him, as if she mattered. She took his hand. The moment their skin touched, the chain in her chest snapped tight. Golden light exploded at the edge of her vision, there and gone in a heartbeat. Alara gasped, and Kieran's grip tightened, steadying her, anchoring her to earth when she felt like she might dissolve into pure energy. "I know," he murmured, pitched for her ears alone. "I feel it too." He led her through the crowd, through paths she hadn't noticed, into the dark forest where ancient trees blocked out the crimson moon and the hunting calls faded to distant echoes. Alara followed in a daze, her hand still clasped in his, the heat of him spreading through her like wildfire consuming deadwood. They stopped beside a moonlit spring. Water sang over black stones, and the air smelled of pine and something else, something wild and ancient and hungry. "You feel it," Kieran said, not a question. Alara nodded. She couldn't deny it, not with his hand in hers, not with every nerve singing a frequency she'd never known existed. "I've waited for this." His voice cracked barely on the last word. "For you, for decades, every hunt, every gathering, every God's damned political alliance. I was searching, I was always searching. You don't know me. I know you've been hurt." His free hand rose to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I can see it in the way you hold yourself, like you're always braced for the next blow, like kindness is a trap you've learned not to trust. I know you're strong, stronger than anyone in that clearing realizes, and I know the bond between us is real." Alara's eyes burned. She blinked rapidly, fighting hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope was a door left open in winter. "Why me? I'm nobody, I can't even shift. I have nothing to offer anyone, especially not someone like you. You're everything." He said it like scripture, like truth carved into stone. "You're the other half of my soul. I would burn this realm to ash to keep you safe. I would tear the moon from the sky if you asked. I don't even know who you are." Something shifted in his expression, a shadow passing over gold. "You don't recognize me." "Should I?" Kieran stepped back. His hand fell away and Alara immediately felt the loss like a wound. "The crest on my ring," he said quietly. "Look at it." She looked. Really looked this time. A wolf devouring a crown, carved in silver on black iron. The symbol that flew from war banners across the northern wastes. The symbol of the Beast King. Realization hit her like a physical blow. She stumbled back, hand flying to her mouth, heart hammering so violently she tasted copper. "You're Kieran Bloodmaw, Beast King of the Northern Wastes." His voice was flat, waiting. Does that change things? Alara's mind raced. The Beast King, the most feared wolf in existence, ruler of the unconquered territories that stretched from the Frostfang Mountains to the burning sea. Stories about him were told in whispers. His savagery in battle, his absolute dominion over feral packs, the trail of broken kingdoms he'd left in his wake. He'd united warring clans through sheer force of will and violence. He'd faced down entire armies and emerged victorious. He was legend, and she just told him he was the first person to care about her name. "I insulted you," she breathed. "I was rude. I didn't show proper respect. You were honest." Kieran's eyes softened, the gold warming to something almost tender. "Do you know how rare that is? Everyone in that clearing wants something from me. Territory, protection, alliances built on fear. They see a monster before they see a man. You didn't even know who I was, and you still spoke to me like I was a person, not a title, not a threat. I thought you were just some arrogant lord." The corner of his mouth twitched. "I am arrogant. I'm also your mate." The word hung between them. Mate. Bound by something older than kingdoms and stronger than death. "This is insane," Alara whispered. "I'm nobody. My family treats me like a mistake. I can't shift. I have nothing. You have yourself." Kieran closed the distance again, slower this time, giving her room to flee. She didn't. "That's more than enough. Your court will never accept me. My court will accept whoever I tell them to accept." His voice hardened, taking on an edge that reminded her this wasn't just a man, but a king who commanded armies of feral wolves. "I saw your cousin's performance. I've been watching your family all evening, Alara. I came to this hunt because treaties demanded my presence. I found something far more precious than political alliances." He took her hands in his, both of them this time, cradled between his palms like something fragile and irreplaceable. "I won't force you," he said. "The bond doesn't work like that. You have a choice. You'll always have a choice with me, but I'm asking you to consider it. Consider a life where you're not invisible, where you're not broken. Consider me." Alara stared at their joined hands. His were so much larger, roughened by claw work and scarred by battles she couldn't imagine. Yet they held her with such care, like she was made of moonlight and promises. "Why would you want me?" The question felt like tearing out her own heart. "I'm damaged. I don't know how to be loved. I've spent my whole life surviving, and I don't know if I can be anything more than that. Then we'll learn together." Kieran lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that burned hotter than any flame. "I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for a chance." Before she could respond, voices erupted from the direction of the lodge, raised voices, angry, desperate ones. "That's my uncle," Alara said, dread pooling cold in her stomach. Kieran's expression shifted. The tenderness vanished, replaced by something cold and utterly predatory. His eyes hardened to chips of molten gold. "Then, let's go remind him who you belong to now." They returned to the hunting lodge together, hand in hand. The whispers that had been cruel before erupted into chaos. Alara saw her uncle at the center of the crowd, face purpling with rage, her aunt beside him clutching a handkerchief as though propriety could serve as armor. And Cashin, standing slightly behind them, his hunting leathers suddenly garish against the firelight, his smile frozen in rictus of disbelief. "There she is!" Lord Ashford's voice boomed across the clearing. "Alara, come here immediately. You've embarrassed this family enough for one evening." Alara felt herself shrink, old instincts surfacing like drowning memories. But Kieran's hand tightened on hers, his thumb stroking across her palm in silent reassurance. "Lord Ashford." Kieran's voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. Conversation died. The hunting horns fell silent. Every noble in the clearing froze. "A word, if you please." The color drained from her uncle's face. "Your Majesty, I didn't realize you were. I wasn't informed of your attendance." "No, you weren't." Kieran moved forward, drawing Alara with him. "Because you were too busy parading your legitimate heir before me like a prize stud, hoping I wouldn't notice your king was watching something far more interesting." Cashin made a small, strangled sound. "I've spent the last hour observing your hospitality, Lord Ashford." Kieran's voice carried to every corner of the clearing. No one moved. No one breathed. "I watched your heir mock his own cousin in public. I watched your guests treat Lady Alara as if she were invisible. I watched you and your wife ignore her entirely, as though she were a stain you hoped no one would notice." Lord Ashford sputtered. We didn't. Your Majesty, you must understand. Alara is mine." The words fell like a hammer on stone. "I don't know what she did to earn your contempt, and frankly, I don't care. But I need you to understand something." He released Alara's hand only to wrap an arm around her waist, pulling her against his side in a gesture that declared ownership and protection in equal measure. The heat of him seared through her borrowed leathers. "This woman is my fated mate, my bond, my future queen. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects the Northern Crown, and I do not tolerate insults to my crown." The silence was absolute. A pin dropping would have sounded like thunder. Alara watched her family's faces cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally sickening obsequiousness. Her aunt recovered first, sweeping forward with a brilliant smile that never reached her eyes. "Your Majesty, what wonderful news. We always knew Alara was destined for greatness, didn't we, darling? We've been preparing her for this moment her entire life." Lord Ashford nodded vigorously. Yes, of course. Our beloved niece, always such a treasure. We've been grooming her." "Enough." Kieran's voice was ice and iron. "Lady Alara and I will be departing. You'll receive formal communication from my court regarding her transition to the Northern Wastes." He turned, guiding Alara toward the forest path, but Cashin stepped into their path, his mask of composure cracking to reveal something desperate and ugly beneath. "This isn't possible," he hissed. "She's nothing. She's unshifted, unremarkable. She can't even—" "She is everything," Kieran said calmly. "And you are in my way." Cashin didn't move. His hands were shaking, his carefully styled hair coming loose. "Do you know what she is? What our family has hidden for years?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "Ask her about her mother, her real mother. Ask her why she can't shift, why she's never belonged." "Cashin," Lady Ashford's voice cracked like a whip. "That's enough." But the damage was done. Alara felt the words like physical blows, each one landing on wounds she'd tried desperately to forget. Her real mother. The woman her father never spoke of. The reason she was different, other wrong. She pulled away from Kieran, wrapping her arms around herself. "Alara." His voice was gentle now, stripped of its royal authority. "Whatever he's implying, it's true." Alara forced herself to meet his eyes. "I'm not fully wolf. My birth mother was human. She died when I was 3 and my uncle took me in out of obligation." She gestured at Lady Ashford, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I'm a halfling. That's why I've never shifted. That's why the bond never found me before. That's why She stopped, but she had felt it, was still feeling it. The golden thread between them thrumming with warmth and life. Kieran stared at her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. The sound was unexpected, warm and rich, filling the stunned clearing. "That's it. That's your family's great secret." He shook his head, something fierce and bright burning in his golden eyes. "Alara, I don't care if you're half human, half fae, or half mountain dragon. The bond doesn't care about bloodlines. It doesn't care about what you can or cannot shift into. It cares about souls." He crossed to her in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands with a tenderness that shattered something inside her. I felt you the moment you entered this clearing. My wolf has been howling for you since you took your first breath in this wretched place. Human blood or not, you're mine and I'm yours, if you'll have me. Elara searched his face for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that this was some elaborate cruelty designed to break her more completely than anything before. She found only truth, only love, only a future she'd never dared imagine. "Yes," she whispered, "I'll have you." Kieran kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't chaste. It was acclaiming, fierce and hot and full of promise. Elara gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back, drawing her closer until there was no space between them at all. The golden thread between them blazed. She could feel it solidifying, weaving their souls together in a pattern that could never be undone. His heartbeat thundered against her chest, matching hers rhythm for rhythm. When they finally broke apart, Elara was trembling. So was he. "The carriage," Kieran murmured against her lips. "Now, before I do something extremely inappropriate for a hunting lodge." She laughed, the sound wet with tears she hadn't noticed falling. He kissed those away too. He kept an arm around her as they walked past her stunned family, past the gaping nobles, past Cashin's devastated face. At the forest edge, Elara paused. She turned back to look at the lodge that had been her prison for so long. "I hope you find peace," she said quietly. "I've found mine." 3 months later, Elara woke to sunlight streaming through frost-covered windows and the steady rhythm of a heartbeat beneath her ear. She smiled, burrowing closer to the warmth. Kieran's arm tightened around her, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her hip. "Morning," he murmured into her hair. "Morning." She tilted her head up to kiss his jaw, feeling the scratch of stubble against her lips. "How long have you been awake?" "A while. I was watching you sleep." "That's creepy." "It's romantic." He rolled them over, bracing himself above her, golden eyes soft with a love that still stole her breath. "My mate, my queen, still the most beautiful thing in any realm." Elara laughed, the sound bright and unfamiliar even now. 3 months of this, and she still couldn't quite believe it was real. The northern wastes with its ice palaces and wild beauty. The court that had embraced her with surprising warmth once they realized she was no threat to their power. The feral packs who bowed when she passed, not with pity but with genuine respect. And Kieran, always Kieran, every morning, every night, and all the moments between. "The Frost Clan chieftains arrive today," she reminded him. "You have meetings until dusk. Then let's stay in bed until dusk. The kingdom will collapse. Let it." He kissed her nose. "I'll rebuild it tomorrow." She pushed at his chest, laughing. "Go be a king. I have my own responsibilities." It was true. In 3 months, Elara had found her footing in ways she never expected. She'd established a sanctuary for halflings and outcasts in the lower territories, a place where the broken and forgotten could find safety and belonging. She'd begun mediating disputes between human settlements and wolf packs, her unique perspective proving invaluable. She'd learned to ride winter wolves, to navigate court politics, to hold her own in the verbal sparring that passed for northern entertainment. She'd learned to be happy. "A letter arrived for you this morning," Kieran said, suddenly serious. "From the Ashford estate." Elara stilled. "My uncle? Your cousin, Cashin." She hadn't spoken to her family since the night of the hunt. There had been formal communications, of course, cold letters of congratulation and carefully worded requests for audience that Kieran had intercepted and denied, but nothing personal, nothing direct. "What does he want?" "I didn't open it." "It's yours to read or burn as you choose." Elara sat up, wrapping the fur blanket around herself. Through their bond, she could feel Kieran's concern, his protective instincts rising like hackles. He would rip the letter to shreds if she asked. He would march on the Ashford estate and demand blood. He would wage war against anyone who'd ever hurt her. But that wasn't what she needed. "I'll read it," she decided. "Later. Whatever poison he's written can't touch me anymore." Kieran sat up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for." "I had to be." She leaned back into his warmth. "But I don't have to be strong alone anymore." Later that afternoon, after Kieran had gone to his meetings and Alara had spent the morning at the halfling sanctuary, she sat in the ice gardens with the unopened letter in her hands. The seal was crimson wax. The handwriting was precise and familiar. Her heart beat steady, no longer racing at the thought of her cousin's cruelty. She broke the seal. "Cousin, I don't expect your forgiveness, and I won't insult you by asking for it, but I find myself unable to sleep these past months. Unable to look at myself without seeing the monster who tormented you for so many years. I was jealous. I have always been jealous of you, though I could never admit it. You had something I could never possess, peace within yourself. Even when we hurt you, even when the world was cruel, you remained kind, you remained gentle, you remained you. I told myself I hated you because you were weak. Now I understand that I hated you because you were strong in ways I could never be. I don't ask for reconciliation. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that you were right that night at the hunt. I hope you found your happiness. I hope the Beast King sees in you what I was too blind to recognize. I hope someday I can become worthy of being called your family." Cashin Alara read the letter twice, then a third time. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Perhaps someday she would write back. Perhaps healing was possible, even for wounds this deep. But that was a decision for another day. For now, she had a king who loved her, a purpose that fulfilled her, and a future brighter than anything she'd ever dared to dream. She rose from the garden bench and walked back toward the palace where Kieran was waiting on the steps, having finished his meetings early. "Everything all right?" he asked, searching her face. Alara smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and warmed her from within. "Everything is perfect." Kieran caught her hand before she could slip past, pressing it to his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. "I love you," he said. The words were simple. True. He said them often, like he was making up for all the years she'd gone without hearing them. "I love you too." She kissed him there on the palace steps where anyone could see, where the whole realm could witness what they'd built together. Through the bond, she felt his joy singing back to her, golden and warm and infinite. Through the window behind them, she could see the ice gardens in full winter bloom, the northern wastes sprawling beyond the walls in a tapestry of white and wild, the Frostfang mountains rising in the distance like ancient sentinels. A new life, a new beginning, and all because a Beast King had crossed a clearing for a girl nobody wanted. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe.